is just booting up here, so it'll be a couple of seconds, Tim. Okay, Mr. Mayor Council, we are live.
Okay, I call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. I would take a motion to, Councilor Rudick, thank you. Motion to accept the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions from the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from our last ledge meeting? I would like to get a motion. Thank you, Councilor Lemko. A motion to accept the minutes. Everybody's gone through the minutes. Is there any errors or admissions within those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Our first today, our delegation is Tom Kep from our Economic Development. Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you doing today?
Good. I bet you're looking forward to get back to work at the office, eh? No more staying at home.
Yeah, I miss the office a lot, I have to admit. I'm used to working in an office environment, and working from home is nowhere near as convenient. I can guarantee you that.
Well, I think we're getting pretty close to that time. So you go ahead and give us your update from the economic development.
All right. Hopefully you've got copies of the report that I did up. So I thought it would be easier if I just kind of separated out kind of regular activities with a lot of the activities that we've undertaken due to the COVID-19 response, to give you an idea of what we've been doing from the economic development side of things in response to COVID-19. So I'll just run through those fairly quickly. If there's any questions, by all means, just put your hand up. Hopefully I'll see it and can respond. So first, we've been working very closely with the Chamber of Commerce on a number of initiatives. One that we just had a meeting about with Phil just an hour ago with regards to the Takeout Wednesday, or however you want to call it. They're talking about Takeout Wednesday or Vegreville Eats. And so it's just a promotion to try and get locals to purchase food on Wednesdays, takeout food from the restaurants. They've got a really good buy-in from it. I think they've got most of the restaurants in town that are interested, at least the ones that are still open, interested in participating. It's a combination of a lot of radio ads. So Jameson, who is obviously both with the Chamber and Country 106.5, is kind of spearheading this initiative. I know he's been working with Phil a lot as well, and Anya. And it's just to try and encourage people to buy food locally. So they're going to be running a campaign on air, especially on the Wednesdays, to promote that. And then we were talking about some other ways to promote it. Here, we're using social media, both the Chamber and ourselves, and we're encouraging the restaurants to use their social media to promote this event. They do, I believe, want to get mayor and council involved in some way. So they talked about some ideas there. The original idea was to have you guys maybe doing some deliveries, but the potential issues with accidents or passing on of COVID-19 or whatever kind of kibosh that idea. So they're looking at maybe a campaign where we're posting pictures to social media of councillors and the mayor eating local takeout food from the restaurants, or even possibly videos. So they're hammering out the details on that now, but they will be asking you to get involved as a group fairly shortly. I'm fairly certain with regards to that. We're also looking at using a lot of the billboards that are along Highway 16A. Our main drag there has got a number of boards, message boards and what have you. Boston Pizza's got one, A&W's got one, Dairy Queen's got their sign And then there's several other signs along there that we are going to get them to encourage them to put up Takeout Wednesday on the signage, and supporting that, supporting local. And we're going to also be talking to a number of local businesses, including the car dealerships, to utilize their signage to promote Takeout Wednesday as well. So that's an update on the Takeout Wednesday. Other initiatives that they're doing, as you're probably aware, they're posting on their Facebook account. They're posting a number of a lot of information with regards to businesses, if they're still open, what their hours of operation are, if there's any special conditions. So we worked with them. We've had myself and Andrea have worked with them to try and populate that list and help them. And Caleb has done a great job in the last while to promote and to drive traffic to that website. So we are using our social media outlets to promote their Facebook page and the information that's on there, as well as helping them gather that information. So we've been fairly active with regards to that. Other things that we're working with the chamber on is, as you know, we're looking at updating our website. We're also working with the chamber. They have a fairly inactive website, so we're working with them to encourage them to update their website and make it more up to date and looking good. And I know Caleb has been working with Michelle at the chamber with regards to that, and I've kind of been acting as intermediary here for the last little while, but they're looking like they're moving forward on that as well. So that's very encouraging as well. I also had a conversation with the town of Vermilion, my counterpart there. They've got a couple of initiatives going, and I got some information on those. One is basically an online directory for businesses so they can sell their goods online. So I thought it was a little more extensive than it is, but what they've done is they've used their business directory as the base for they basically created a subdirectory in their business directory of businesses that have already got an online presence, and they're promoting them through that aspect. I haven't had a chance to talk to Caleb with regards to this because I just chatted with them yesterday. But it looks like we might be able to do something similar depending on what the status of our business directory is right now. They've also got, have been promoting a lot of activity there with a group called Sunseekers Media, and they're putting video out with regards to some of the activities in their town, some of their businesses in town, etc. So I talked to them about that. They were a little reticent to give me too much information because it has been a very popular campaign. I think they said they've already had 115,000 views of their campaign there. So it's been hugely successful for them. But they did give me some contact information of some people there that I call and look into the costs with Sunseekers Media. So we'll see if that's something that would be of benefit to us as well. So that's kind of what we're doing in conjunction with the chamber. As you can tell, we are doing a number of initiatives with them. I do keep in contact with Michelle frequently, and we're doing what we can to support our local businesses on that side of things. In addition to that, just so you know, we did mail out the C1 initiative checks. That was several weeks ago now. And I actually had one company phone and thank me because they had closed their doors and were unable to bring in any revenue. And they said it's really helped them get through the month with some of their expenses, including their rent. So that was a great opportunity for us to local business there. We are continuing our work with Ag Creative, and that's one of the issues I will get you up today. So extensive conversation with Caleb, with we changed the scope of our agreement, and we had originally worked with them last year on a couple of initiatives that they completed for us already, but one of it was to work on our website. Consequently, we have switched providers on our website, and AllNet provides the service of doing that. So we have decided to
So we've lost Tom. I sent him a note to try calling in to fix up his audio here, but it looks like he's reconnected. So we'll see if that's any better for him.
Sorry about that. I'm in Mundare, and my internet connection is a dish on top of my roof. So sometimes it doesn't quite work as well as it should. Can everybody hear me okay now? Can you hear me, Caleb?
You're still a bit spotty, Tom. Do you think your phone audio would connect better?
Sorry, I apologize for that. I have no control over my internet connection. Can you hear me at all now, Caleb?
Yes, that's a little better right now, Tom.
Okay, if I cut out, I apologize. So I'll speed it up a little bit here just in case. So with ZAG, we have moved our campaign to a two-fold marketing campaign blitz. So the first portion of that is to work on COVID-19 response. So marketing campaign to support our local businesses and to get the word out that there are still some businesses open out there and to drive traffic to the local businesses. The second part of the campaign is when things return a little bit more to normal, in which we will be looking at a combination of marketing for business and investment attraction, business, as well as more resident attractions. So we have to be working on our campaigns. We are working in conjunction with communications and making sure our look and our feel and our messaging corresponds with town messaging. So that is coordinated with them as well. And so not only is there's some dollars carried over from last year, but we managed to negotiate a reduced price on the program with ZAG, and also the program.
Okay, well, this seems like it's not going that good. Hearing every fourth word is just not enough for me to put the pieces together. So if we can get maybe Caleb, you could get him to phone in or see what we can do there.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll get in touch with him and see if he can call in and kind of jump back in queue, if that works.
Okay, so Phil, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am, sir.
And let's get you up and rolling.
Everybody hear me okay? Good. Okay, the first one is 6.1. It's an urban hen request. This is a letter to your worship and council from Hélène and Lorraine Houle. They are asking if the town would consider an urban hen project in response to the COVID-19 and people becoming more self-sufficient. And has everybody had a chance to read the letter? Do you want me to read through it, or?
Hopefully everybody's read the letter. So you can go ahead. They've referenced how many other municipalities have a hen bylaw.
So I was doing a little bit of research this morning on Box of Docs, and I found 5 municipalities in Alberta that have an urban hen bylaw. As we had mentioned before, there are some bylaws, there are some procedures in place, some policies. So again, it came down to administrative work. It was a half and half. Some people really enjoyed it. Some didn't care. Some thought it was a good project. If council wants me to revisit this, I certainly can. This is now the second request that we've had for this, including Diana Weiss, her original request for the urban hen bylaw. So if council is in favor of that, I can certainly have a look deeper into it.
Go ahead, Councillor Warma.
Well, I just kind of wanted to say on this, and hopefully everyone can hear me well, so I'm not always sure about my internet here. If we are looking at this and we're going to revisit it, I think that we have another item right after it on the agenda we're going to have to discuss, because to me, one thing leads into another. I'm still of the same mindset as I was before. I believe that once we open this up once, it's not going to be just 1 or 2. I'm still a hard no on it. And quite frankly, when I look at the communities listed, it moved me not at all. We are talking about them listing some very urban communities and many communities that were not even anywhere within us in Alberta. And I just think that we have to recognize, if we're looking at this, we need to take into consideration the fact that we're now going to have 3 additional requests. So my stance hasn't stayed. I have no interest in exploring this one. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Lemko, then Councillor Rudick.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset a little different than that. I think I did some research on this, and there are communities, Turner Valley, Clive, Crossfield, Lacombe, Okotoks, to name a few. Grand Prairie, St. Albert, and Edmonton have urban hen bylaws, and they're well managed within the scope of the bylaw itself. I don't think it's, I think if we wanted to put some energy around something, we would have a look at how many dogs are running around in town and barking at all hours of the night that are probably causing more problems than any 4 chickens in the backyard will cause. I think there's something to explore here. I think it's something our community should be available to our residents to have that opportunity to have a few chickens in their backyard, and you can limit the amount. You know, there's certainly some bylaws in other communities that'll say, based on the population, there's X number of permits available for hens. I think it's well manageable if you have the right bylaw.
Okay, Councillor Rudick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't here last time to be able to get the flavor of the conversation of council. And the second request has come from me via a phone conversation with a resident. And of course, it is one of those things I thought, if we're considering one, you need to consider all, because it is one of those things, because production or food production as it stands is not traditional at this time, but I think it's becoming more and more common. That said, it does need to be considered with a long range plan. And I think right now is the perfect time for people to be reconsidering how they gather and garner their food, which is why this particular request has come forward again. So I do feel like there are a lot of communities that have dealt with this concern, and it's not without challenges with the neighbors, but we have neighbors that complain about less challenging issues, I would think, than a chicken squawking. And for those of us that have the luxury of being able to access local food in terms of being able to get 4-H beef or egg delivery, this may not be a concern, but there are a lot of people that are for the first time facing food security and integrity, and being able to provide for themselves is something that is becoming more and more common across the country. So I think we would be well advised to consider all of these kinds of aspects together.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Barry.
I kind of sit on the other side of the fence too. I'm not really in favor. I think it's the next letter as well that starts expanding upon it. So I think we need to be thinking broader than just the one letter that we're talking about right now. The second one, we start getting requests for beehives, rabbit hutches, as well as chicken coops. I think it is a slippery slope as to just how far we're going to allow the various aspects. I'm not certain if we're facing a food shortage to the extent that we have to start raising our own in our backyard. I haven't seen that type of a shortage in any of the stores around here to this extent yet. So I'm not particularly in favor of it right now.
Councillor Waters.
Yeah, and about the cultivating the food and such, I understand that the people are concerned, but there are startup costs to that. But aside from that, what Councillor Lemko alluded to with the dog bylaws, that is a difficult one to be enforcing. We've been having challenges with that. This is going to be another one of those case by case kind of situations, be it the smell, be it the noise, be it whatever. It's going to be a bylaw issue as well that we're going to need to address.
Okay, Councillor Brajek, what do you think?
When this was first brought forth a few months ago, I was in favor of looking at other communities and looking at what their bylaws consist of. Looking at this now that we have one resident, maybe thinking of 3 different suggestions for farming rabbits, chickens, and bees, I think that would be a little bit excessive. We don't want to promote farming within our community. I think that that would be disruptive to a lot of neighbors. And I like the idea of the chickens, but I see where it could snowball. The effect could be, and it's not only the dog bylaw. I think we don't have a cat bylaw, and we do have a cat problem. So I think we would be opening ourselves up to, you know, a little bit more than we bargained for.
Okay, Councillor Warwa.
And I can totally appreciate that. That my biggest thing is just that we're considering both things together, because I see how one snowballs into another. And they're definitely 2 different kinds of requests, because you can have a rabbit in your house. That wouldn't have been something that came to us, but now we're talking about where they want to have them outside. Bees, another thing. So, you know, there's containment, and I understand the positive impacts, but we also have, you know, neighbors who would have bought a house not expecting that we were suddenly going to, because they bought a house in what is still more of an urban setting, and not expecting to have bees specifically beside. There can be other things, there can be allergy issues. For me, I mean, I can only speak personally on my issue with the hen thing. As far as that, I understand, you know, that there are dog problems, but when I bought in town, I expected that an animal that is in town is a dog. I would personally be very upset to have chickens next door, because I didn't make a decision to live on an acreage or to live in a rural municipality like even Strathcona that has. I specifically picked to be in town because I didn't want to be part of that lifestyle, which is, I mean, for me, that would be my decision on it. But I think that need to be very careful on the other letters.
So if we were to put together a bylaw, would it just be a chicken bylaw, or would that encompass bees? Would it encompass chickens for production of meat and the rabbits for meat? How would this all play out? Because I'm certainly not in favor of having small productions of meat in people's backyards. That's not, I don't care if they're eating it themselves or what they're doing, because as a neighbor, I didn't invest a bunch of money into a piece of property and then having, you know, chickens, like say 25 chickens being raised for meat and up against my fence, and, you know, a bunch of chicken manure piled up against my fence. So at first I was sort of okay with 3 chickens for eggs, but I can see what I've read from other municipalities, how this all tagged on to one another, and it got out of hand by the end, the bylaw, what they were trying to create. So would it all be each type of animal have its own separate bylaw, or how will we do this? Like, go ahead, Phil.
It could be incorporated into one bylaw. There is one community, and the name's eluding me, I had it written down, that does allow the rabbits and hens and chickens. This is the first time I've seen bees. If we were, I'd put it into one bylaw that would allow those certain items, certain animals to be. And again, they're not for resale, they're for consumption within that residence only.
Okay, Councillor Riddick.
Just to be clear, I think there's a big difference between food shortage and food security, because I would say that people are feeling confronted, so they're considering other options. That said, there are people that currently have bees, not the person that penned the letter, but we don't know about it currently. And as it stands right now, there could also be people that have chickens. We don't know that. That said, is it possible to have a pilot project? Is it possible to consider trying it out and doing it no different than having a small business that has to have the approval of its neighbors to be able to operate? Is this something that's possible to try on a trial basis and see how it goes?
Go ahead, Phil.
I did look through a few bylaws, and what I was seeing as sort of a standard was allowing one residence per 1,000 to 1,500 residents would be allowed to have these urban hens or have the chickens. So in Vegreville, that would equate to about 5 or 6 in the entire community. That was a couple that I had reviewed. There certainly can be limitations, restrictions put on to how many we allow in the community, if that was an option to consider.
Well, I can see that there's some merit, I guess, to what the question is here. So if you want to bring this to a council meeting and we can debate it there, any questions that you feel you need answered, please get them to Phil before the next council meeting. We could put this on the agenda and we could go for a vote on how this bylaw would work if we are even willing to entertain this bylaw. So is everybody okay with that? Well, that's what we're going to do then. So
right.
If you have any questions, please don't surprise the Director Rowe with them at the last possible second. If you have any questions for the director, get a hold of him and so he can be ready to answer your questions. Okay, so let's.
Sounds like I'm going to be buzzing and hopping on this one.
Yes, it certainly does. Okay, Tom's back, so we're going to put you on hold there, Director Rowe, and we're going to go back to Tom. And Tom, are you going to be using your phone, or what's the plan?
Well, we'll try it again with the video and see how it works. And if I have some issues, I will phone in. But hopefully we got the, it seems to have been pretty good here for the last couple of minutes. So hopefully we're not going to get another splurge like that. So I'll just go back to kind of where I left off, if that's okay. We had, we were talking about ZAG and how we had combined the contract into a two-tiered contract that has a focus on COVID-19 response and local support, and then long-term marketing, which would be focused on investment attraction, business support and startup support, as well as resident attraction. So as I mentioned, we've got, I think it's roughly 15,000 left over from our original contract with ZAG, carried forward from last year, which dollars were carried forward from last year's budget. And that would leave about $10,000. And of that, CARES would cover half of it. So it should only be about a $5,000 expenditure out of this year's budget to do this campaign. So that's kind of what we're hopefully looking at with regards to that. I don't know if you want to take comments at the end or at each of these initiatives, but that's the first initiative that we're looking at right now.
So does anybody want to ask Tom any questions about the proposal, what they're going ahead with ZAG right now? Looks like you can keep rolling, Tom.
All right. The second one, as you are all fairly aware, we had meetings with the local car dealers and chamber and talked about a number of initiatives. This is before COVID-19 hit. And one of the main themes that was brought up was it would be nice if we could replace the signage on Highway 16 that are welcoming people to Vegreville. I pass the sign every day, and it is off to the side of the road a long way. It is starting to show its years, as well as it is not a lit sign. It is a wooden sign with no lighting on it, and therefore very difficult to see in the evening. So we did look at a number of sign options. 16 of them were presented to our Economic Development Board. We voted on them, and it's been narrowed down to 3 now. Those 3, I think you have seen copies of. So long story short, they are fairly different. We can have them either with or without the messaging boards. The messaging boards, the good news that I heard was that they were originally all in the red lettering, but now you can get colored ones that are still messaging boards. They're a little slightly more expensive, but not, it's within the hundreds of dollars instead of the thousands of dollars more expensive. So the actual boards themselves are roughly $20,000 more to the signs. I did talk to them. If we do look at 2 signs at once, there's roughly a 5% savings. So on 2 $80,000 signs, $160,000, you're looking at about an $8,000 savings if you sign up for both of them at once. And then they also have options with leasing that I just got from them. So there's a number of different lease options with regards to these as well. So your options would be 1 sign or 2. Your options would be buy them outright or lease them. Your other options would be with a message board or without a message board, would kind of be the 3 main things. The individual that I talked to initially was a salesperson, and he thought that it would be fairly easy to get the permitting. Talking to the president of the company a couple of days ago, he says it's possible, but unfortunately with transportation, and Dale can probably tell me better, I fired him off an email, but he hasn't had time to do to work on it yet, is Alberta Transportation, apparently they have different directors in different areas of the province, and some of it's to kind of at the discretion of the directors as to how strict they are to the guidelines. So some of them are very lenient and they will allow full message boards, some of them not so much, and they restrict it to just signs. So yeah, that would be very contingent upon who is the transportation area director here and how, I guess, strict or lenient they would be. So those are kind of the options that we're looking at there. We are aware that they would probably need an RFP. These are estimates by Blanchette Neon, but we can do up an RFP and get quotes in and look at it from that standpoint as well. So that's pretty much it as far as the recap. If you take a look at the suggestions, the first one, which is number 13, was the one that had the largest number of votes from the Economic Development Committee, but as they are an advisory committee, that is why it's coming to council.
Yeah, so Tom, I would suggest to you that you would send the whole proposal to council where I don't really feel that an advisory board made up of some members at large of our community and some people that aren't in our community will be making those decisions. So not that I didn't like the signs, but you can send the whole proposal off to all the councillors and we'll take a look at that ourselves. And who knows, we might even come back with the same top 3 as the advisory board, but this is what we do. This is why we're here. And when there's money to be decided, we'll be the ones making the decision. So we can send that out to us. I'd appreciate that. And of course, there would be an RFP put together to put out there to see what these signs are going to cost. And anybody else have anything on the sign issue right now? Councillor Warwa.
Just a question, and we may be too far ahead of this, but I did notice you talked about the options of purchase and then also the options of possibility of lease. And I saw there was some additional plans with the drawings. Was there a base amount because they were incorporating like the shape of the egg? Was there also a base fee that had to be over and above if we were looking at a lease option?
Well, when they're doing their design, they can add or subtract whatever they want, and it's just going to affect what the costs are. So the leasing option was just to spread it over obviously a large number of years, so there's not an initial big hit, and there are obviously costs associated with that. And they said they do have a relationship with an existing leasing company and that we can use, or if we would rather somebody else, we can do that. So that's something that Paul certainly would probably have some comment on with regards to leasing. But yeah, so the original, I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I thought that we'd like quite a while ago sent out all 16 options that you had a look at, and it was just what our thought was from the Economic Development Board standpoint was just to narrow it down so there wasn't such a huge range of selections to make the decision a lot easier. I have no problem sending the original 16 out again.
Did anybody else see those 16? Everybody did? I certainly didn't, so sorry.
I apologize, Tim, now that I think about it. So we had a meeting with the chamber, we had an economic development meeting, and we had a meeting with the tourism, with a couple of tourism representatives. If you recall, I think it was either 1 or 2 of my presentations ago, you had made the recommendation to get a group with a couple councillors on it, the chamber, tourism, and ourselves in it. And that's why a number of the councillors have seen it, but I guess it didn't get out to every councillor. So I'm more than happy to send that out to everybody. I've got it, no problem. I can forward that to you.
Well, I certainly do remember the fact that we were going to put a panel together on the sign. So that's good that they've got to see it. And I'd be interested in seeing the rest. Councillor Rudick?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify, it was a subcommittee that was struck. So Councillor Berry and Councillor Lemko and myself have seen them all. And then it's come back to economic development. I guess realistically, what we'd be looking at is a consolidated conversation capture of various different groups is basically investing in our community now to bring people there later. So depending what it is, the signage would be a way to be able to bring people to the community. And I guess the way that it's broken out here would be a helpful way to be able to break down, if we're talking about the existence currently of approximately 350 businesses in Vegreville that are under licensed business license, and divided that up and being able to capture the number of people that might additionally visit a business or visit the community and spend money here would be kind of the long range investment, and the lease helps capture that in real time. The other thing I would just say that in terms of the illuminated signage, and as you take a look at the different signs, the option of an unlit or a lit sign, I think, is maybe making the bigger investment upfront, and having the powered sign allows for more versatility. It allows us to look more current. And I also want to make sure that we don't miss the timeline to be able to do a RFP as well as an application to Alberta Transportation. Currently, we do have a regional manager, Dwight Ravega, that works for Alberta Transportation. This is not his area per se. We usually go through Vermilion, I believe, Dale. But in order for us to be able to take action in terms of getting a great price and great timing, I think we need to move fairly swiftly. The other part I would say is that, for example, the Vegreville Ag Society just made their decision officially that they're canceling this year's fair, although the decision was made provincially last week. So there are some bodies in terms of the Pisinka Festival, the Vegreville Cultural Association, and the Ag Society that may also be willing, as we had talked about previously, Your Worship, about sharing the cost potentially. And as those two bodies have a different reality as they look towards the summer, this might be a time to be able to capitalize this project as well. So just want to make sure that we don't miss timeline as well.
Okay, well, Tom, you could send out out to the rest of us councillors that hadn't seen the whole proposal. And then the recommendation from the ad hoc committee is to pick one of these 3 different designs. So the pricing is in there. We will maybe bring it forward to the next council meeting and see who is willing to be in favor of going ahead with spending this money right now. Is everybody okay with that?
Sounds good, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I will get that to you immediately. I think Sandra may even have a copy of that right now, and if she does, she can send it. Otherwise, I'll send it to her as soon as I'm done my report here.
Is there anybody else who hasn't seen this? Councillor Waters, Councillor Warawa, and myself. Okay. Thank you. What else you got, Tom?
Third major thing that we're discussing right now is I've been in discussions with Cliff, and we're looking at doing up a community profile. So we have contacted MDB Insight, who are the ones that did our 4 reports last year. And they have sent us a quote of just over $15,000 to do a community profile. The community profile would include about a 12-page section on business attractions, so investment attraction, targeting outside interests. The second one would be for local business support, so what is available and what supports are available, and what other information is available for businesses that are either existing or looking at starting up in Vegreville. And then the third one would be focused on residents attraction, So attracting people to Vegreville to live here. So each one, the first one is roughly 12 pages, and the next two we're guesstimating will be roughly 8 pages each. And then they're going to combine all 3 of those into an overall overarching document that will cover in slightly less detail each of those areas. We're also going to be coordinating that with ZAG Creations department on making sure that the look and the feel fits our brand and our image and our messaging. So that is the third kind of major initiative that we're looking at doing for support of our local businesses, but also looking at initiatives for resident attraction and business attraction down the line.
Okay, well, is this money budgeted right now that you want to spend here, or?
We do have money in the budget if it is determined that that is something that that fits with the priorities of council.
Well, I sure as heck would not want to see another study done and sitting on a shelf, that's for sure. This is a lot of this happens, and Councillor Rudick.
When we did the CARES grant with MDB Insights, part of it was aftercare or implementation, and I believe that this fits into that category. And so this is some of the deliverables that were supposed to be delivered afterwards. And so this is not only the follow-up and ensuring that it's not on a desk. As you can see, there's some poster boards that were made in the entrance of the town office. I guess maybe not seen lately, but they are on the stairs going down to the Economic Development Office. But these items in particular would allow us to be able to both physically as well as online be able to provide that investment opportunity, particularly right now when people are able to do some of that research while they're at home and taking a look at their new business opportunities, as well as being able to have maybe the GIS information about what retail space is available would be timely. So I believe most of this money is already accounted for and available. So it's not a re-ask, it's actually already been set aside.
Okay.
Just to clarify and to support what Councillor Rudick said, yes, this would be 100% workable under the CARES grant. And also, this is not a study. This is an actual, these are pure marketing pieces. These are marketing pieces that we would have available online that would tie in with our website, as well as we would have print materials. So this is 100% to produce marketing documents.
Okay, thank you. Well, anything, any type of study that's going to help support some of our local businesses here as the reopening of our economy starts. Any information that way would be very helpful at this time. Okay, is that it for your report today, Tom?
A couple other really quick things. We did have an economic development board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the major focus of that was exactly how to help our businesses, not just now, but also looking at the future. So the minutes were completed from that, and we'll have those circulated. So that was a very good discussion. I have attended a couple of webinars regarding business, not just on how the impact has hit business so far, but also on how we can potentially look at coming out of this. And as a follow-up, I had a conversation with the group that we have been talking to a fair bit. Mr. Mayor and Councillor Rudick and myself and Cliff have been working with a group of people. So they have a new chairperson in place that gave me a call and was looking at potential locations for a facility. So I had a long conversation with him and discussed the options here, and that looks very positive, as well as Cliff and I have been approached by another group that's looking for possible hemp-related industry in Vegreville as well. And we are pursuing that as well. So we've got a couple of different businesses that are interested in hemp-related businesses and locating in Vegreville. So that's positive as well. So everything else is pretty much in my report. And if there's any questions, I would be more than happy to take them, but that's pretty much it for my report.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Tom? Seeing none, thank you very much, Tom, and look forward to seeing you back in the office, hopefully here in the real near future.
I hear you. I'd love to get back.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, let's go ahead, Phil, and now we're going to move to the next thing on your agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is a letter from CN regarding the spraying of vegetation control along their CN tracks and their right-of-ways. Basically, they're just letting us know that they're going to be coming through their communities between May and October. Along the actual tracks, they will be using chemicals that has to be done. In their right-of-ways, they will use mechanical controls as best as possible. So using lawnmowers, hayers, things like that. And they're asking if we have any requests through our community that would require vegetation control, that we contact them. So I will talk with Parks Department and compile a list, and we'll get this off to CN right away to put it on their list of control through the community, vegetation control through the community.
Okay, thank you very much. Are we going to address what?
Does anybody have any questions regarding this or no?
Councillor Rudick does.
Just to be clear, you mean strictly on the right-of-way of the railway, correct?
Yes, either right on the tracks themselves and their right-of-way portion that they'll be maintaining.
This is something that they do every year.
Yes, it's just that they've hired a private contractor to do the work for them now. They're all licensed and following industry standards. And what they're doing is now they're taking requests from the community. If there's any concerns we have, that they'll make sure that they're addressed and on the list.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to bring up that other letter right now too that's on the agenda?
Which one is that, sir?
Is that not the bee and the hen one that the Council Rudick brought forward?
Oh, okay. I can do that. I just assumed that we covered all.
You can give us a brief summary and who's brought this letter forward, and maybe the people that are watching on YouTube or whatever can get a little more of what we were just talking about.
Okay, so this was a request from Brian Butler, and it was to Councillor Rudick, and is forwarded to us. And it's a very generic letter, but his request is to have bees in Vegreville, so one hive per family, per yard type thing, locked areas, licensed for homeowners only. What I understand is that bees will ward off wasps, and they pollinate gardens and flowers. I have really not looked into this too much, so but I certainly will. And with the killer hornets migrating north, maybe they'll help. I don't know. Also, the chickens. This hens 2 to 3 per family per yard, and broilers 50 per family per yard. That's getting quite intense in terms of the amount of chickens. But again, I'll look into this. Rabbits, they can be stored in a shed or a structure and limit on the number of animals. So as per council's direction, I'll have a deeper look into this and see what communities are doing, and I'll come back with some proposals to council.
Okay, and we will be making a decision at the next council meeting regarding this subject. So everybody be well aware of that we're not going to let it go on any further. This is our second time that we've been asked, and we need to make a decision on this. So, okay, does anybody have any questions? Oh, there, Councillor Warwa, thank you.
If you can just find out, or maybe you know offhand, Phil, in regards to the rabbits, we don't actually have anything prohibiting, like there might be a number, but we don't have anything prohibiting somebody from having a rabbit right now in the backyard, do we?
I am not aware of anything unless Mr. Lefebvre can help me with that one, but I don't think so. Is there anything, Dale, in land use?
Just give me 20 minutes so I can unmute. Land use bylaw does talk about livestock. There's to be no livestock, and it has a list of what's included in the definition of livestock. And that's provincial definition, and it does include the chickens, fowls, and rabbits and things like that. And that's in our current land use bylaw. But like any bylaw, if council wishes to go that direction, we can change that and make it work as well.
Councillor Rudy.
And just to be clear, Mr. Butler, sorry, was asking about just bees, not about the other animals. And so he was interested in, I guess legally, he understands that we would be considering more than one potentially at the same time, which would be the reason for including those other considerations. His particular interest is in honeybees. And just for your peace of mind, those killer hornets are actually not killers of people, they're killers of bees. So they can kill up to, I believe it's 20,000 in the span of a few minutes. So your hive can go quickly, but it's not people that it kills. So hopefully they don't come here either.
Well, thank you, Councillor Rudick. So again, we'll bring this forward at the next council meeting, and just let everybody know that when we go ahead and pass something like this, or even if it's on a trial basis, it opens up a whole ball of wax. So we'll have to see where that goes. Thank you, Director Rowe. Next up is Mr. Dale Lefebvre.
No, I have one more item.
What?
Yep. Mural completion.
Well, I didn't see that on my agenda.
You might have to do a quick refresh.
Well, that's not going to happen. So because whatever, we'll figure this out later, but go ahead.
Okay, so this is a request from the Vegreville Tourism Advisory Board. The topic is to complete the completion plans for the mural on the east side of 4910 50th Avenue. So that is the outreach school building next to the empty tech school lot where we did have the smaller mural done. So the Tourism Advisory Board has been in conversation with the artist, Bree Adkins, regarding an ongoing project that would see the completion of the full wall mural on the east side of the building. Ms. Adkins visited Vegreville, as you know, in 2019, volunteering her talents and painting the Learning to Share mural, and has subsequently been working on with the board on a concept and design plans for the rest of the wall. Originally, it was drafted as a sponsorship concept to fund completion. They were looking at selling 1 square foot blocks of the mural to the public. The board acknowledged that plan may not be very prudent at this time during COVID. But they do support the idea of the town of Vegreville moving forward with the project funding the related costs out of the existing 2020 tourism budget. The mural is an investment in the community's tourism assets. The tourism budget has several items that will not be expended as projected in 2020 due to the cancellation of some of the projects. So there is sufficient funds in the budget to cover all the related mural costs. The tourism and culture coordinator through myself, we've confirmed that there is unexpected funds that from the project cancellations, and we would like to request the use of up to $10,000 to complete the mural project. It would be recorded as an expenditure for tourism in 2020. And we have the memo is a recommendation from the Variable Tourism Advisory Board. The advisory board is supporting and recommending that Town Council approve the expenditure of the $10,000 from the 2020 tourism budget for the mural project. So this is coming from the Tourism, Culture, Recreation Coordinator, Anya, and myself, and it is being supported by the Tourism Board to have the project completed.
Okay, maybe Councillor Warwell, you can update us on where the money was not spent and where the direction you want to go.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. And I just want to say on this one, we talked about it quite a bit because we were kind of very aware of the fact that, you know, we have to watch where we're showing we are spending money, especially in this time and everything that's going on. And we thought about, is there going to be people in the community saying, is this the time to see an expenditure? And we thought that, you know, we still need to be able to show something's going ahead, and it's something that people can still drive by with social distancing. They can still come see. There would still be the ability to even showcase it online, and it might be one of those things that kind of shows that while COVID has stopped a lot of things, things still go on. So I just kind of want to give a little bit of a reason and some of the things we thought about. Of course, now with the cancellation at this point right now, the time isn't there to, we wouldn't be hosting a number of the activities we talked about, including anything with the Ukrainian cultural group with long tables. That wouldn't be something coming forward. Right now, we essentially had to put a halt on a lot of the activities that were announced as the 20 and 20, which we had allocated some funding towards those. You know, they would, and maybe there are some things that might still come up in the fall, but essentially almost all summer programs have been put on a hold. Even we aren't purchasing additional bikes. None of those kinds of programs have kind of gone forward. But there is still the ability to advertise the town and to do something that's kind of an improvement project. So that's kind of where we were at. Again, we want to bring it to council. This is the recommendation. The funding is there, so it's not a new expenditure, but we also want feedback. If the council doesn't think it puts us on in a good light, we'd want to know that as well. But the board consensus is that it would be something that could go ahead and still show movement, that we haven't stalled out or died out in tourism.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. So the stuff that the money was allocated for is not being spent right now, but will there be a budget request in the next year's budget for that same money to do those things next year?
Okay. So at this point, there was no discussion about asking to ask for additional funding. It was just what we wanted to do within the existing funding that was there. Same thing with the murals. Originally, there was the plan for additional murals down the road to have had a sponsorship ability. So this isn't necessarily a reoccurring item within the mural. And within some of the things that didn't get to go forward, again, it was not something that we would need additional funding for because they were specific projects. It was more so the ongoing things that we were doing, somewhat more operational, I guess you could call it, that we just expect not to cost the same funds because we can't run those programs. So it wasn't specific funding to a specific project that's being allocated somewhere else that will still need money. It was more an ongoing.
Our Director Rowe.
So just to reiterate that, so there was 4 trade shows that were canceled. All those fees, all of that marketing stuff never went through. So again, those are those are some of the funds that could be transferred over to this expenditure.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of consider them more like operational type things versus like a project specific that would then be asking for new funding.
Okay, so do we need approval of council to make this happen, Cliff? Do we need to bring this up at a council meeting or where are we at?
Yes, this is a board recommendation, so it would require council approval because these funds were not planned to be spent as budgeted.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see on Monday when it gets to the meeting. So this is another one of those items that we'll have to figure out at the meeting. Councillor Waters.
I have a question. So saying that the funding wasn't used for the conferences and stuff like that, and but next year's request, those conferences and stuff will be attended again and trade shows or whatever. So there will be an additional funding request from council next year.
Go ahead, Councillor Warwick.
You know, and if Phil needs to clarify, but essentially I wouldn't say there'd be an additional because it was so many dollars that's allocated in the budget every year towards the tourism budget. And then from there, Anya and Phil would have broken those down and allocated certain amounts. So we wouldn't be looking at a new, it would be asking additionally, basically for the same type of budget ongoing. And if the budget had to be reduced, because we know things are changing, then they would have to make some adjustments and might adjust whether we decided to go. But unless Phil has anything else to add, I don't think we would be looking at there needing to be a new allocation for that.
No, that's correct. The budget request for next year would be very similar to what was this year in terms of those operational costs. Wouldn't be anything additional being added to it. So,
and my thoughts were we weren't purchasing the bikes this year, if we weren't spending the money that we allocated for some expenditures at the new event center and stuff, that if we spent it now, that those would be included in next year's budget. But if you're saying that this was more of an operational savings through your department and through your board, then okay, that would be something that would make this a little easier to sell, I would think. So we will see at Monday night's meeting. Does anybody else have any thoughts? Okay, and Phil, you're done.
yes.
Okay, now, Mr. Lefebvre.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one RCD that will be coming to regular council. This is regarding the business license penalties of 15% that were applied on March 1st, as well as the cancellation of business licenses. So what we've discussed at the last meeting is that we would extend that until June 1st. That would mean that the penalties have already been applied pre-COVID. So they were applied on March 1st. And then by March 31st, we were to start canceling the business licenses of those that still hadn't paid. And this RCD is to extend that to June 1st. And we said the last meeting that would bring this up to council before we made it formal. And this is now bringing it before council, before we make it formal, the next regular council meeting.
Okay, everybody's read the proposal. Any thoughts moving forward here before the meeting, or you want to wait till the meeting and discuss it? Councillor Barry.
The only thing I was looking at is June 1st still too soon? It's not really making, we're not going to be through the pandemic by June 1st. Should we be considering a slightly longer time period to extend it to, or is June 1st the more appropriate?
My first question would be, Dale, what percentage of business license have not been renewed, would you say?
I would say that approximately 26 out of 300.
Okay. So if you need any more information before this proposal comes before council, get a hold of Dale's office, and because right now, I know basically where most of us or some of us are at. So any more information you may need before the meeting, we will, I would imagine that there's probably 14 on this list that are the same people that were there last year. So go ahead, Councillor Rudig.
I guess just for clarity too, that this is a small percentage of existing business owners, but also to clarify that anybody that is looking to establish a business would still need to apply for a business license. This is only in this specific example where there might be a late charge.
Yes, the late charge is already applied. Like I said, it was on March 1st. So even if we wait till after and cancel the business license, if they should come in 2 or 3 months and want to reopen or get a new business license, they would still be owing this money to the town, plus the penalty that exists. And it's brought here now at this time because when we discussed it, Councillor Barry, you're correct. We thought, well, let's bring it up just before June so that we get an idea to discuss and see if it is too soon or needs to go further. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Dale, and we look forward to seeing that at the council meeting. It's going to be lots of stuff at this council meeting coming up that nobody knows what's going to happen. Hey, Councillor Lemko will be very happy. Okay, Mr. Paul Suter, Corporate Services Director.
I think you mean Mr. Paul Casey, and I think Councillor Waters has got a pecuniary interest here.
Sorry. You would like to step out and go get a cup of coffee?
Sure. Do I just mute my computer or leave the meeting? How do you want me to do it?
You can, I don't care.
Okay, I'll mute my computer and then Sandra, I guess. Let me know when to come back.
Okay. Sorry about that, Mr. Paul Casey. Called you Mr. Suter. Haven't done that for like 3 months.
Well, I think that's the first time actually, but
okay.
Anyway, this is a letter of intent that was sent by Crystal Hooker Royal LePage on behalf of one of her clients. It's an unsolicited letter of intent to purchase a lot. There are 3 lots on one title west of the water reservoir by the pool. This fellow wants to buy lot number 2, which is the one right adjacent to his house. It would be a 50 by 140 lot. He wants to pay $15,000 for it. He wants the town to bear the cost of subdivision, and he will bear the cost of amalgamating on his title. So.
Okay. So on those 3 lots, there's an alley in there too, is there not?
I'm not certain. Dale, do you know?
Dale. Dale, is there an alley in there as well?
No, there's a cow trail that people are driving through, but it's not a registered road right away.
So is that land for sale right now? Have we advertised that land? Have we ever given any thought of selling that land around this asset that we own?
There has never been, this property has not been offered for sale by the town.
Councillor Rudick is first.
When we had this previous discussion about which properties would potentially come forward, and Councillor Barry maybe can clarify that, I don't think this is one of the ones that came up, which would be congruent with what you're saying, Your Worship. I'm just wondering about, we do have policy in place in terms of determining a price. And if you could just remind me, Mr. Casey, what our policy is with regards to sale of town-owned assets.
There needs to be an appraised value done, and there has not been an appraisal done on this property. So I don't know if this is a fair price, $15,000. I know of other lots in town that are listed for $22,250 on their right on the for sale signs. Those are the lowest lots I've seen for sale. So I don't know if this is a fair market or not for this lot. And to the best of my knowledge, the town has never suggested that this lot or any of these lots around that reservoir be put up for sale.
Councillor Barry.
Yes, I was just going to agree with Councillor Riddick. I believe all of the lots that we actually considered to be put up for sale have signage on them, inviting people to contact a realtor because the town was willing to sell those lots. I don't recall ever addressing this one here. In fact, I didn't even realize that it was a separate lot. I just thought it was part of the water area there, the storage. It strikes me that this would have to go through our actual policy for sale of a residential lot. And I don't think this would fit that. So I think we need to look at it a little closer.
Well, if you were on the council the day when the proposed water tower was being put forward, and if you looked at the infrastructure in the ground and some of the needs of a water tower, if there was a breakage or a leak, or that was probably why this amount of land was set aside for that facility to be built on. So myself personally, I don't really feel that we would compromise this asset that we own by getting rid of land that it was put in place when it was built for this project at the time. So that's my thoughts. Anybody else would like to share their thoughts on it? I mean, I don't really care what the price is. I mean, the price is really low. I mean, there's lots that Mr. Casey was talking about, 22,000. You can't build on them. You can't do anything on them because of the challenges that are in the ground there. So maybe Dale, you may be able to help us out. So what leaves that water tower? What's going on around there? This infrastructure that we own, is it a fairly busy spot underneath? Would there be challenges down the road if anything was ever happened to that facility?
Quickly, no. Everything is on the east side and then goes north-south from there. The number 2 lot has nothing underneath it.
Okay. Councilor Rudick.
Sorry, just to clarify, Dale, there is nothing integral to the operation and the integrity of the reservoir operation by the selling of lot 2. And then the subsequent question is, do we have a timeline in which to answer this individual?
Okay, I'll answer your first question. All I responded with is there was nothing underground on lot 2. If there were some repairs or things that needed to happen to the reservoir, you would still need some room around the outside of the reservoir. I have only seen this very recently. I know that that's probably 50, 75 feet from his property line to the reservoir. We could do some homework at it and maybe to encourage some development in our community. If he wants to put up a structure and a fence and add some to his yard, we could probably look at splitting that lot number 2 in half if he'd be interested in something like that. That still gives me 50 feet of room around the reservoir to do repairs on the walls and things if I have to.
Hey, thank you, Dale. Any other questions?
To answer your second question, Councillor Rudick, there is no timeline on this letter of intent. And when I talked to Councillor Waters last week and Crystal, they said there is not a rush on this, but I guess he would probably like to know. And he is proposing that he would put a taxable structure on that property within a year.
Which could be a garden shed that's over 10 by 10. So we don't make motions here and we don't make decisions here. So if we're all willing to wait till the next council meeting, we will make a decision then. Okay, thank you. You have one more, Paul.
Yeah, I think Councillor Waters can come back, and she has. So
there she is.
This is a request for council decision on a sale of tax recovery property that we recovered in October. It was a residence, and the previous owner had a renter in there, and we didn't get the renter out until March. And then with COVID-19, we didn't get an appraiser in there to find out what the appraised value of this property should be. When the property was appraised, there was a significant difference between the appraised value and the assessed value. And this property had been offered for sale prior to us taking ownership, which had an even higher value than the assessed value. So I contacted a realtor to find out what a fair market value for this property would be, because the difference between the appraised value and the assessed value alone was almost $50,000. And it's a little house, 840 square feet. And so the proposed fair market value is in the range of 85 to 89,000. And I would recommend that I'll bring this RCD to council on Monday, recommending that we list this property at 89,000 or offer it for sale to the realtors at $89,000.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
I have one more item, Your Worship.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
With respect to MSI, it's an email that came from the provincial government talking about the MSI and the impact of COVID-19. So basically what they're saying is for the operating portion of the MSI, which is about $52,000, we can spend it on whatever we want from an operating point of view. Typically you have to provide a application saying what you're going to spend it on, but now they've relaxed that. We also haven't got the money yet, but they are expediting payment for that. For MSI Capital is a little bit different. In the past, the way they handled MSI Capital was they would pay you 50% upfront. And then following the final completion of the SFEs, if you met all the requirements, you would get the other 50% of the MSI money. So we would usually get 50% of our allocation in June, and we would get the rest of it usually in March or April of the following year. What they're suggesting now is that every month they will contact the municipality to find out if they will be utilizing the MSA fund allocations. And if the answer is yes, then we will get some MSI. If the answer is no, they'll contact us again next month. And every month they will be calling to find out or emailing to find out if we're going to use the capital allocation. We have submitted an application right now that was accepted. I mentioned at the last council meeting. We also have 2 pending applications, just waiting for the final tenders on those projects to get the prices in, that will be submitted as soon as that information is available. So we certainly will be answering to the affirmative to their question, will we be spending the MSI capital money? So.
Thank you for that update. I thought it was kind of funny when they sent that out, but yeah, I guess if you're not going to be using the money, they're not going to let it sit in your bank account. They'd like to keep it themselves.
Yeah. They did say in their email that it will not impact the ultimate amount we get, because if we don't, I mean, we'll get it sometime. Said no, but we're going to be saying yes, because we certainly have enough capital projects in the works to use up all our MSI and then some.
Exactly. Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Cliff, you don't have nothing in your column right now. We'll wait until we go around the table.
No, it looks like Councillor Rudick has a question.
Okay. Sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just had a question for Mr. Casey. I don't know if this information was shared separately from the Minister of Municipal Affairs to you or to elected officials. I'm just curious what percentage, or if you've heard of other communities that are actually not doing capital projects that would be leaving it for later. I know that we, of course, as you stated, are not one of those, but I'm just curious what percentage would not be accessing these funds.
I have no idea. I would imagine all municipalities are going to do whatever they can to get all the money that the government's allocating to them, but I don't know of any that are going to not use it. I also don't know any of it other than us that are going to use it. So,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, when a town hall that I was on the other day, and Minister Madhu was there, and he was speaking, about this. And basically, if you're not going to be using the money right now, instead of you setting on the money, they would rather have it there because of the borrowed money that they're operating with on a lot of other departments. So it just, instead of a municipality setting on some money in the bank, they will use it someplace else. The money is always there. Your allotment, it will be there, they're saying, but if they don't need to send it to you, they would rather keep it. Okay, so I'm up next. Thank you, Paul. Everybody's seen the letter from St. Mary's regarding the request for their grad on May 22nd. And I know that our last meeting we talked about for all of us to be conscious, and if you see something other municipalities are doing, what we can do for these grads. And so their request has come in that we use our digital sign at the Ag Park, and we run pictures of the grads all day long on there and maybe a little bio about them. And they are going to put up some pictures around the pond of the grads. And so they're going to be coming down with their families, I guess, for some pictures and stuff, by their picture. And there will be, you know, the appropriate distancing, physical distancing going on. So they're just asking if we'll be okay if we were to run those pictures on our digital sign of the grads for the day. Any thoughts? Councilor Brodziak, you're first.
I would entertain this idea, absolutely. I think it would involve some of our administration to set this up, but I do think it is a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Barry, you had your hand up?
Yes, I definitely support it. I think that as we have talked about it, that one of the things that this has caused is the grade 12s are losing something that's very important, and that's their graduation. If our digital sign has the capability of doing that, then I would definitely support it.
Councilor Warwa.
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely support it. If we do end up going ahead, and I realize that, you know, anybody can come to us, but it might also be good for us to just share with our other school as well that this is something coming forward, and also possibly to not forget the outreach school as well, if they would want to put names for it. I'm not sure if they would have somebody separate.
Probably not on that same day. Okay, Councilor Rudig.
I think whatever we can do to make sure that our young people feel acknowledged and recognized is not quite the same as the usual pomp and circumstance. The public school graduation is usually held in June, and there are significantly, there's a little bit more time between now and then, but of course the impacts are the same. We just might want to consider the number of graduates in terms of where the posting of the pictures, for example, because again, we'll want to make sure that we allow for proper distancing in both instances. And I think it's great if we can use that sign. The digital nature of that sign, as well as the proposed one for the outside of town, is flexible and immediately reflects what's happening in the community, which is a great use of that sign.
So Councilor Lemko, you're good with it?
Yeah, I fully support recognizing the graduates of our community with the signage at the park, as well as the digital display. I think it's an awesome idea to any way we can positive message our community. They grew up in our community, and I think it's important that we show our support of them. I'm not sure what the pictures around the park, what they'll look like, but it'll be interesting to see if they're each family's doing it or how it's going to be. So that's another thing that we could take pictures and post it on our social media and just show how much we actually care about our kids.
Thank you. Councilor Waters?
Yes, I'm in support as everyone else is. I just want to say though, to maybe check on that signboard itself. I did notice there are a couple of spots that aren't illuminating as brightly as the rest of it. So we don't want that to interfere, especially if we're gonna have bios or something, we don't want words missed. But definitely I am in support of it, and it's a rite of passage. We all deserve it. It's earned, definitely.
So whose department is that sign fall under? There you go, Director Rowe. You might want to go change a few light bulbs, sir.
I am on it.
Okay. And well, you can let maybe the other school and the outreach know what we're doing for St. Mary's. And if they had a day that we'd be more than willing to support their graduates too, so.
Yeah, the composite is June 6th, I believe, was their scheduled graduation.
Okay. Thank you very much. So next we have the round tables. Councillor Waters, on my screen, you're all by yourself at the bottom, so you can start.
On my screen, I'm at the top, number 2. I don't have a lot. I haven't had any Zoom meetings or anything like that since we last met, but I have had some calls and emails from residents saying thank you for the updates on the radio, on our website for our municipality. They know it's important to hear what's happening provincially, federally, but to a lot of people, it's right here at home, what's happening and what we're doing. So they're very happy with that, as well as us recognizing some financial stress for some people. So with what we're doing with our taxes and our water bills, again, I've been receiving some thanks for that, for council and mayor's decision, and for admin putting in the work for it as well. So that will be it for my report.
Thank you. Councillor Brodziak.
I haven't had any Zoom meetings either, but I do want to thank council for recognizing our latest, what did you call her, a centurion?
Yes.
From the Homestead Lodge. Jesse very much appreciated council coming to wish her congratulations on her 100th birthday last Friday. And her family really appreciated it as well. So she is a spunky lady. Unfortunately, we had to delay it by a couple of days, but she surely appreciated that council took the time out of their busy schedule to come out and support her. So thank you very much, council. And that is all that I have.
Okay, Councillor Warwa.
Yeah, I actually had the same because I didn't have meetings in between. I did get a couple of phone calls also, and I am happy to say that they were mainly in regards to hearing us communicate, excuse me, and particularly on the radio. That seems to be something that people are liking to hear and hear more of. So I think, you know, if we keep having the message from the mayor as well as council going in and maybe, you know, taping again some new messages or some updates, I think that it definitely has some merit in there, because that seemed to be the response. And that's all I have on this one.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Lemko.
Yes, our library is going to be part of the phase 1 phase in here on the 14th of May here. Our committee hasn't met yet, but I'm sure that our chair will be sending out a communication plan to see what that looks like for us. I know Public Library Service Branch will be giving some instruction towards the board on what that looks like as the first step in phasing in. And so there's not a lot of communication that's come out of there yet, what that looks like. I just wanted to address not so much a concern, but just how many people are attending our park. Saturday is very busy. There was, I counted at one time, 26 vehicles. But the beauty of what I noticed there when I did spend some time there observing is that people groups, so families, were picnicking together as a group at a picnic table, respecting the other family groups that were picnicking at tables with social distancing. So it was pods of families at different locations within the park. We had the little red ice cream wagon there. Len, he was set up, And the people were, the length to get to the ice cream shack was long, much longer, because everyone was practicing a 6 foot, and so they were almost all the way up to the egg to get their ice cream. It was interesting to see how busy it was, and yet how people respected. I did talk to Len, and he mentioned that he was asking people he didn't know where they were from, and most were from out of town. That were there's some Sherwood Park, there was some Vermilion, there was some more Edmonton, some Sherwood Park, and they just said, we have to get out of the city, we have to get away. We're locked up. We want to go for a drive. Unfortunate, this is well within the distance we would drive, and it's welcome to go out in the rural areas. We're going to see more of that as tourism starts opening up into our communities. I would like to see where we sit as a community. What's our communication plan coming out of this COVID with the phases? What are we telling our people? What are we communicating to the public? What are we letting them know? What do our employees, when's the doors to our town office open? When do our employees start coming back to work? Because it's happening as we speak. And are we prepared for that right now? And I don't know the answer to that. There's a new normal going to come out. I don't know if it's new normal, but many habits from this COVID is going to carry forward. Virtual, we're in a virtual realm. Even the video broadcasting of our council meeting when we get back together is going to be expected. So this kind of format on YouTube will be the new normal. The COVID has shifted to a more social media platform. My mom was on Zoom, which she doesn't know what that means, but many seniors in our communities are talking through Facebook or through social media. That's going to be the new normal. Fortunate part for us, we don't own COVID, but we own the response to it as a council. So we need to communicate our plans going forward. We need to be, we need to have a plan, and we need to let the public know what that plan is as we come out of this. That's my report, sir.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rudick.
So following up on what you just talked about, Councillor Lemko, I had a sweet call from a little old lady that was worried that she would get arrested for going for a walk with her friend. And what it highlighted for me is our need to continue to communicate with people on a variety of platforms. And so just speaking with Parks Department, and I don't know how many people actually know the extent of our walking trails and where exactly they go to and end up, because there's some that isn't clearly marked and some is unclear. So I think it might be just further to that comment that we need to be able to communicate clearly with the public. She was specifically looking to walk at the golf course, so I could direct her to the golf course. However, they're getting their greens ready in preparation for the weekend, so it was a challenge to be able to even get anybody on the phone. But I do feel like if we're going to be following Alberta health guidelines in terms of safely using the outdoors as a place to be physically active and physically distant, that's a way for us to be able to continue to be a proactive, positive message. And particularly in that venue at the Egg Park, for example, we've made it clear that businesses that are in operation, like Little Red Ice Cream Wagon, is following Alberta Health Services guidelines. But do we have our own signage there? I'm not sure if we have our own signage for any of our own facilities. Then the other thing I wanted to mention is FCM had its first ever virtual meeting, board of directors. So there's 150 people in 2 different sittings to talk about the cancellation of the annual conference. Of course, we knew that that was canceled already in Toronto, but how to move forward, because of course bylaws are going to be missed. And there are different provinces, for example, that are approaching their elections different ways. So Nova Scotia, for example, has pushed back their municipal elections and just trying to find a way to be able to adhere to the Board of Directors guidelines as well as economic recovery, what that means for the board. So as it stands right now, there will not be an annual conference this year. And in order to keep with the guidelines and the memorandum of understanding that there will be for elections and the annual general meeting will be pushed back to late September, early October. That would have been sent out in a document or an email to all of you, I believe, directly, if you've signed up, as well as via the Vegreville email channels. And so at this time, there will be more information coming out. There still requires a resolution of council to run for FCM board seat. And this time this would be a virtual election campaign on September and October in that timeline to be able to secure a seat for the various provinces, and the various provinces have their own electorate and different way to be able to appeal to them. At this time, I'm still interested in running for FCM seat to represent Alberta municipalities. So I'll keep on top of that and look forward for a resolution of council, because I do need to have the support of this council to be able to represent Vegreville as well as other Alberta municipalities on that board. Further to that, I had mentioned last time that FCM is looking for continued examples of positive as well as challenges, that they are using specific examples in their social media campaign, as well as their advertising and their solicitation with the different cabinet ministers. So I had said last week that they used Vegreville as a positive example of being able to reach out to the local radio station, but they've used other communities and are looking for some specifics. So I will reach out specifically to find out what the costs are. I know that Mr. Casey had talked previously that potentially by June, I believe it was, that the revenue lost as well as the potential cost would have been about 450,000. I believe that's what you said. And again, they're looking for be able to capture what that actually looks like, because there's been some new programs that have been introduced in the last week, some of which are very helpful, specifically volunteer firefighters and municipal elected officials that earn less than $1,000 a month, for example, being able to apply for the emergency response benefit, and also rent relief through another acronym, but it's basically to provide rent relief for small businesses, as well as trying to be responsive to the requests of agricultural producers at this time. The other thing I just wanted to point out is I had previously participated in a documentary narrative screening for health training for people with various health issues. And I'd done that on my own time, on my personal time, but they're going to be doing a documentary screening, virtual screening on Sunday night. So if any of you are interested, you're welcome to tune in and hear about myself and another individual that participated in that. And it's Alberta Health Services continuing their narrative and reaching out to communities at a time when all of us are at home. So that is my report.
Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to directors. Does anybody need a bio break yet? Cliff?
I believe you missed Councillor Barry.
Oh, did I? Sorry about that, Councillor Barry. Easily I have a pattern.
I was
Everybody keeps moving around on my screen. So.
I was sitting here being very quiet, so.
Oh, go, you go
Actually,
right
I don't have a lot to add other than I will admit the park was very busy. It was a gorgeous weekend. And yes, there's a lot of people that are getting rid of their cabin fever by getting out and being around. And you'll see that by the numbers that are biking and walking in town as well. But for the most part, I think it's really good. Everybody seems to still be in pretty good spirits with the weather getting this way. So I just hope that everybody can be patient a little longer and keep up with the proper safeguards. We can't let our guard down too far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that too, Councillor Berry. I sort of, if everybody would stay in their little square here like the Brady Bunch, but no, everybody's gonna move around. So we'll start with Director Rowe. What do you have for us? What are you working on?
Just a couple of items, Mr. Mayor. There was a letter received to administration from Marvin and Margie Tomaszewski addressing a couple of items. Was discussed at senior management, and we will be drafting a response. It was regarding trees and truck route on big trucks on Maple Street and the piling of snow, but all the questions have been addressed and a letter of response will be drafted to them. From the FCSS staff, just to let council know that they have contracted a community counselor and will be firing up the community counseling program. So it's a local lady working out of a public health office. So we are excited to have that program in place. It is much needed based on the results of the survey in the community, people needing a community counselor. So she will be starting up shortly once Julie and Teresa figure out the logistics of how it's all going to work. It will start virtually and eventually we'll move to one-on-one when we get back to our newer normal. And the community gardens, if anyone is being questioned, it is moving forward. It has been moved from FCSS to Tourism and Culture and Recreation Coordinator. FCSS has so many little projects on the go right now. So I've moved, Anya has agreed to take on community gardens for this year, and we will see where it goes next year. So there is some interest in community gardens, and we're moving forward with that. That is all I had.
Thank you very much. Dale LaFave.
I think Councillor Rudick had a question there, Your Worship.
She does.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wondered if you had any idea what the increase, or if there has been an increase in the number of people accessing the Meals on Wheels program. Kudos to FCSS department for the excellent advertising in terms of the income tax program and the food bank, or sorry, the Meals on Wheels program. But I'm just curious if there's been an upswing in the numbers that are accessing that program.
From what I understand, the Meals on Wheels actually the numbers have dropped slightly, and I believe that is from people that are just basically restricting access to their homes. Whether that it will be picking up, they've still been quite busy, but the number of actual people that are using it is down slightly at this point.
Yeah, Julie I'd had a conversation with Julie at FCSS about that. So maybe next Monday I can address that a little bit more on the radio too. That we've done it once. Jameson and myself are talking about the facility that the food is prepped in is the hospital and all the precautions they take to deliver it. There was still a lot of people that right off the bat said they didn't want it. They didn't want anybody near their house. But there's things to loosen up a little bit. Maybe we'll see if we can't get people a little more involved in that. Okay, thank you. Dale LaFave.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first director highlight is just a follow up on the K&K metals that we had gone through here just recently to let you know that they have, or their legal has filed a discontinuance of claim. They've signed the settlement agreement and the mutual release has been executed, so it is over. Next I have is our Southeast 17 project update. So as far as on-site, which is we have on-site where the development's going to be, off-site is the forest mains and water lines running to the lagoons, and then the lift station is the third project. So we broke it into threes, if you remember. So on-site, the sewer sanitary mains have been sized and we're working on the drawings with MPE. The storm sewer design is on hold because the wet cattails area we thought would likely be considered a wetland. So now it has been considered a wetland by the province. So we're doing our wetland assessment right now is where we're working through on that. But the water alignment, hydrants, valving, how the design is going to be on site in the actual development where the structures will go is well on its way, and the modeling is complete. And we're working on that offsite. The sanitary trunk main to the lift stations have been sized. The forced main from the new lift station to the lagoons is sized as well, and with some other options we're going to review. It's like, do you want submersible pumps? Do you want dry pumps? Do you want, so we're going through all the best fits for us. And also the modeling will allow us to know what this lift station's capability is with the pumps and pipelines and pipe sizes that we spec with it. So obviously we'd like it to be able to do its job for many, many years as expansions and things happen. And the lift station is the same. The layout sketch for the lift station is complete, and the building style as well is complete. Now we're doing the interior design. So things are happening at a good pace there. One more thing, the town has water and wastewater operators, and we are members of the Alberta Water and Wastewater Operators Association. This is a group of probably about 800 to 850 wastewater and water operators throughout the province. They had a conference this year that was cut short because of COVID. But what we had done at our office was sent them a photo. They wanted, it was a contest. They wanted us to submit a photo that showed innovation, it showed new design, it showed what forethinking does in your community. So I submitted this picture, if you'll remember it. That's the water line crossing the North Saskatchewan River in the Fort Saskatchewan area in 1981 as it comes to Vegreville, made its way to Vegreville, and that's 39 years ago. So that's what was submitted. And apparently it was innovative enough that, that's right, first place.
No way, look at that.
Right in the Alberta Water and Wastewater Operators Association, more pleasantly known as AWA. Yeah, we're number one again. So Vegreville's on the map. That's good to see.
That's actually Fort Saskatchewan, Dale.
Yes. The crossing at Fort Saskatchewan, yes.
Yeah, okay.
What did I say?
You said Vegreville's on the map again, but I said, well, it's actually Fort Saskatchewan. It's fine.
Gotcha.
Everybody at the John S. Boutique will be happy to see that.
Yeah, and I'll be passing it on to Caleb so we can get out there on social media and blow our horns a little bit. It was good.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
If they deem that Southeast 17, that first piece of the property as wetlands, how many acres are we going to be losing of our development?
It's a few acres. It's not huge. We're seeing what we can do. It may mean that storm retention ponds go someplace else. There's so many options. It could mean that we have to contribute financially to assist or create another wetland someplace else if we remove this one. It means that we may have to do filtration systems different on site for stormwater. So that's what we're looking at now. What is the assessment? It's not, I believe it's like 3 or 4 acres out of 87. So.
Okay. And we're still going with an open ditch design on that stormwater management, right?
At this point, yes, for sure.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Dale. Mr. Paul Casey, what do you got for us for your director highlights?
Sorry about that. Working on our tax notices. At our last council meeting, we suggested we would send out the tip forms with the utility bills. However, the tax notices are going out on Monday. The utility bills are going out on Friday. So we're just going to include the tip forms with the tax notices. And in the scoop, we're putting a section in there about the tip and explaining what it is and how to use it. And that will go with the utility bills.
Excellent.
Yeah. We were hoping, yeah, our plan is the 11th right now. We're having one issue with our notices in terms of a date that we need to get fixed, and Central Square, who services Diamond, has been It's been constant for the last 4 days trying to get hold of them. They finally got hold of us, fixed most of it, but there's one issue I noticed just now. So I'm sure we'll get it fixed and we'll have them all printed tomorrow and ready to go on Friday with everything that has to go with them. The other thing is the annual report that we prepared for this year's financial year end. I should see a final copy of it tomorrow. I understand, and then that will be coming to council for approval on Monday. And that's all I have.
Again, thank you very much. Cliff, you're up.
It's been a busy period, but although it doesn't look like I have a lot to report, I have covered a lot of material. The first was the taxation rates bylaw. Paul and I worked with Alberta Council on revising our tax rate bylaw to meet our council and provincial requirements. So, and that bylaw was approved at the last council meeting. Paul and Caleb and I have met to discuss the communication strategy regarding community awareness for the TIP program and payment option for taxes. So we're on that, and we will be getting the message out. Paul alluded to the application actually being in each tax notice. Our form on the website is being updated to a fillable PDF, and then we will also be putting notices in the paper at strategic times here. So, and then of course, last week I attended the CAO Council meeting on April 29th. But like I say, there's a lot of things in between that either have been reported on or I can discuss in the format of a different meeting.
Thank you. Can I get a show of hands who here has all downloaded the app for the Alberta Trace Together with Alberta Health Services? Wow. It doesn't work unless we all download the app. Just thought I'd let you. Paul, you got yours? Good thinking.
No, I don't have mine. My wife has hers, but it doesn't work very well with Apple products is what they're saying right now. And it won't be fixed until the end of this month when Apple updates their operating system.
Okay. Councillor Warwa.
Cliff, this was just for you. I don't know how this is going to shape out. Federally, you may have heard they were announcing something in the Canada Student Service Grants that they were looking at, which was, it was a very vague announcement. The information still isn't up, but I'm just thinking this might be something that lines back to the municipalities in some way. There was some suggestion that there would be a grant for fall education that would be given to students that do either some national service work or service for their community. I haven't heard any details. There was no details as of this morning up, but I just kind of want to make you aware of it because I think that if the details come out and it sounds like there's stuff they can do volunteering in the community, we might get some municipal too. I'm not really sure how they're going to deem what is community work yet, but I've heard a lot of it at my work, people asking how it's going to lay out. So I think the minute they announce more, just a heads up that I think that we're going to have a bunch of questions come to the town. Just want to throw that there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that ends our agenda for our regular meeting. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to bring up? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Waters.
I'm just curious, as councillor, are we going to do new recordings for the radio, or we can look at that again, replay the old ones? I haven't heard any for quite a while.
Cliff, what do you know about that? Are we done the program that we were on with 106.5?
Yes, that program has run its course. Is council interested in doing new and fresh recordings?
Well, let's show of hands. Does everybody want to go do another round of recordings to talk to our community? All those in favor? Well, you got a majority. Councillor Brajak, you have a question?
I have a question. I would request that I would be in favor of doing another round, but I feel it's a bit early. I'd like to wait a week or two.
Councillor Lemko.
I think it'd probably be a good to wait till after our reset, where we're rethinking everything that we want to talk about anyway. So maybe after that, we could provide some detail as to our plan going forward and communicate that to the community.
I do believe that would be the best option, is that we wait just a little bit and we see how the province is going to shake things out, and our plan will be together and what we're going to be doing. And it all is subject to change too. I mean, it could change at any minute, and the Premier and Dr. Henshaw have been pretty adamant about this. It all depends on just how well this relaunch goes. So we'll look at that. We'll talk about it at the next council meeting, about the dates, and should have some sort of plan moving forward about our relaunching the town. So at this time, we have some issues to talk about in a closed session. So I would be taking a motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Councillor Waters. All those in favor? Carried. So Caleb, you got a couple things